This is part 2, episode 98. Hello, who are you? What's my third test? Hui Yuhao asked calmly. Golden light flickered in his eyes as he spoke, and he immediately launched spiritual detection at this person. An encounter with a stranger in such a wide and open space meant this stranger was far more likely to be an enemy than a friend. However, Hui Yuhao's pupils began to contract in the next moment, because he realized to his surprise that his spiritual power couldn't sense this person's existence. He felt as if this person was formed from air. His spiritual detection reached over, but he wasn't blocked. Instead, he couldn't feel anything at all. This was the first time he had ever felt something like this since he had gained the use of spiritual detection. This person is Hui Yuhao your name? A calm and melodious man's voice traveled into his ears. The man's voice was a little surreal and dreamy, but he sounded warm and amiable. Yes. Hui Yuhao gave a simple answer. He began to channel his soul power at the same time, so that he could keep himself in his peak condition, while his eye of destiny opened on his forehead. This unknown enemy was frightening, but Hui Yuhao could tell from his experience with the Yin-Yang Love Querying Valley's previous 2 tests that no matter how peculiar and mysterious this place was, the valley wouldn't give him a task that was actually impossible to complete. Do you want to know who I am? Do you want to know what your third test, Sincerity Adventure, is about? The man's melodious voice sounded a little amused. Yes. Hui Yuhao continued to give simple answers. First, I will tell you that I'm not the task for your third test. However, you have to fight me if you wish to continue to take your third test. Try everything you can to beat me. Hui Yuhao was momentarily stunned. He hadn't expected to find himself in such a situation. The man didn't explain anything at all, he only talked about fighting. Is this part of the third test? Or perhaps only a preface? Hui Yuhao didn't get much time to think before the figure opposite him suddenly moved. He felt like a bluish-golden shadow had instantly appeared before him and pushed out a palm in his direction. This shadow didn't have any special aura, but Hui Yuhao realized that he felt weak and unable to do anything when this bluish-golden shadow appeared. He was at a loss and disoriented, and he didn't know what he had to use to fight back against his opponent, because the man was like a ball of air, as if he didn't exist at all. The shadow's flickering bluish-golden palm accurately planted itself onto Hui Yuhao's chest. In the next moment, Hui Yuhao felt a terrifying aura that pierced all the way into his heart and bones exploded inside his chest. In that moment, he could clearly hear all the bones in his body crackling like fireworks. The sound was horrifying. Hopelessness and death were all that was left. Hui Yuhao transformed into a blizzard of blood and flesh that scattered in all directions. However, pure white light suddenly erupted from where Hui Yuhao was originally standing at this moment. This white light transformed into a small 7-layered pagoda, which it rotated rapidly in mid-air before sucking Hui Yuhao's spirit inside. This pagoda trembled violently, as if it were trying to struggle out of this space. That's interesting. You possess a strength that comes from a different dimension. He's quite a good teacher, what a pity. The same calm voice sounded a little surprised, and another layer of bluish-golden light bore down from the sky in the next moment. The white pagoda instantly shattered, and a strange scene occurred afterwards. Uncountable specks of light swiftly congregated, and Hui Yuhao reappeared in this vast courtyard, after he had been shattered into pieces by that single palm strike, as if nothing had happened at all. Hui Yuhao died, his spirit was pulled back together, and he returned to life. That feeling of his body being broken into pieces and reassembled was deeply imprinted into Hui Yuhao's soul, and he experienced death, hopelessness, and extreme pain within those few short seconds. Hui Yuhao was completely lifeless and sluggish when his body reformed. However, his human-shaped soul tool that he had put in so much effort into crafting wasn't with him. Instead, it had been reassembled beside him. I'll let you use your legs for now. That calm voice appeared once more, and Hui Yuhao realized afterwards that the ultimate ice origin energy of heaven and earth in his body seemed to have disappeared. He could suddenly feel his legs again. Hui Yuhao hadn't used his own legs to walk since he came back from the setting sun forest's ice-fire yin-yang well. He wasn't very used to suddenly being able to move once more, but he was still quite delighted. However, the same shadow that flickered with bluish-golden light appeared before him once more immediately afterwards. Hui Yuhao went through the exact same experience as before. His body was blown to smithereens, and his spirit drifted for a moment before he was reassembled again. I'm very disappointed in you. Have you lost even the courage to fight? There was a little reproach in that calm and melodious voice now. Hui Yuhao was rendered speechless. At this point, his body was normal, but his face was ghastly pale. He had gone from life to death and back to life, and it wasn't possible for his mentality to be normal and stable after all that. The bluish-golden shadow didn't attack him anymore. He placed his hands behind his back and just stood there quietly. It took Hui Yuhao several full minutes before he managed to stabilize and regulate his breathing, and his intensely beating heart settled down as well. He stared at this opponent that he couldn't possibly defeat as he suddenly gritted his teeth and bolted forward. Soul power circulated within his body as he attempted to unleash his goddess of light. But Hui Yuhao instantly discovered that he couldn't focus his spiritual power at all, let alone fuse it with his soul power. He couldn't even unleash a normal soul skill when he reached his opponent, let alone his self-invented soul skills. The only thing he could lash out with was his fists. The man waved his right hand, sweeping it onto Hui Yuhao's body as if he was swatting a fly. Hui Yuhao instantly crumbled to dust before he was reassembled once more. The bluish-golden figure was still standing there, motionless. Hui Yuhao grit his teeth tightly. His opponent was frighteningly powerful, and had even restrained and arrested Hui Yuhao's own abilities. How could he possibly defeat someone like this? How could he win? The agony of death and the insidiousness of being reborn, in addition to his spirit's vigorous ripples, dealt a heavy blow to his mind. Everything was just incredibly upsetting. He wanted to call the little snow lady. He wanted to summon the Sky Dream Iceworm and the Ice Empress. However, he couldn't establish any connection with his spiritual sea at all. The only thing he could rely on at this point seemed to be his own physical strength and pure soul power. Hui Yuhao's breathing gradually stabilized once more. He recovered a little faster than the previous time, but he no longer rushed blindly at his adversary. Instead, his brain worked rapidly as he sought to find a solution. I can't beat him. If I can't beat him, can I run? This thought had just appeared in Hui Yuhao's head when he turned to run, and he began to race away from the shadowy figure as fast as he could. However, he only took 3 steps before a palm slapped against his body once more, and he went through the same pain and suffering again. Hui Yuhao was reborn once more, and was panting vigorously while all that agony lingered in his mind. No, not like this. I can't run. Then what should I do? I can't run, and I can't defeat him. I can't even die. Does that mean I have to grind it out with him right here? No, that's not right. There must be a solution. The yin-yang love querying valley wouldn't give me an impossible task. Hui Yuhao calmed himself once more before he started to ponder and think. He couldn't run, and that meant he had to face this challenge head-on. Right, what did he just say before this? He asked whether I still had the courage to fight. Does that mean that this round is testing my courage? Hui Yuhao suddenly raised his head as his train of thought stopped here. He stared vigorously at the bluish-golden figure in front of him, and then rocketed at his opponent once more. This time, Hui Yuhao had learned his lesson from his previous attempt, and was no longer affected by his inability to use soul skills. He mustered his soul power into his hands, and used the ghost shadow perplexing track at the same time. Just as he was about to rush right in front of his opponent, he suddenly sidestepped in a flash and slashed at the bluish-golden figure's waist with his hand. His opponent was incredibly quick. He pressed down with his right hand and slapped Hui Yuhao with his right hand, and Hui Yuhao's arm instantly vanished. The bluish-golden shadow kicked out and stomped Hui Yuhao in the chest, and he erupted into dust and particles once more. Hui Yuhao went through another round of rebirth, heavy panting, pain, and contemplation. He used 2 hits before he killed me this time. Then, what about the next round? Hui Yuhao darted forward yet again. He was stuck in this boundless courtyard, and was up against an invincible opponent. He knew that his only choice was to fight. The agony of death and rebirth seemed a little fainter than before, and wasn't so intense anymore. Therefore, Hui Yuhao recovered in the blink of an eye this time. He immediately charged at the bluish-golden figure once he recovered. Hui Yuhao could only use his ghost shadow perplexing track, mysterious jade hands, and controlling crane capturing dragon, as he gave everything he had to assault his opponent. As Hui Yuhao fought with his unknown adversary, everyone else started their respective rounds as well. Golden light flashed, and Dai Huabin was surprised to realize that he was now inside a vast forest. He was surrounded by plants he was a little unfamiliar with. Tall trees seemed to pierce right through the clouds, Dai Huabin couldn't even see beyond the treetops, they were so huge. The atmosphere around him felt a little eerie, and even the colors of the vegetation here were a little gloomy and ghostly. Dai Huabin unleashed his martial soul, the white tiger, as he surveyed his surroundings warily. Where is this place? What's this sincerity adventure about? Right at this moment, an agonizing howl could be heard from not too far away. Lulu. Dai Huabin could no longer keep his cool when he heard this voice, and he raced in the direction this cry came from without hesitation. That voice belonged to Zhulu. He had been together with Zhulu for a long time, and they were thus very familiar with all those small details about one another. Dai Huabin charged through the vegetation before witnessing a terrifying sight. An enormous centipede was assaulting Zhulu. This centipede was more than 3 meters long, with uncountable legs. It was jade green in color, and emanated a dark green toxic gas. Dai Huabin was still quite a distance away, but he could already smell a waft of its rotting stench. Zhulu was using her agile hands against this giant centipede, but there was a gash extending all the way down from her pretty cheeks, and across her entire right arm. Her right arm was hanging limply by her side, and it was evident that she had cried out in pain because of this wound. Even though Dai Huabin had never seen this kind of soul beast before, his eyes became bloodshot when he realized that Zhulu was injured, and he unleashed a tiger's roar into the sky. Dai Huabin's 5 soul rings rose up in an instant, while his already muscular body began to grow and expand. He was still relatively far away, so he opened his mouth as his second soul ring sparkled and fired a white beam of light towards that centipede. The centipede looked very peculiar. It was like a tough spring, and suddenly spun around when it felt the threat coming from not too far away. It actually used its head to block Dai Huabin's white tiger fierce light wave. White light was deflected in all directions, but the centipede was only knocked sideways slightly. Its body twisted and meandered as the lower half of its body bounced lightly against the ground, before it launched itself towards Zhulu again. The centipede was obviously more interested in Zhulu than in Dai Huabin. Dai Huabin was charging forward at full speed at this point, and he used his first, third, and fifth soul rings without any hesitation. Those soul rings gave him his White Tiger's shield, White Tiger's Vajra transformation, and White Tiger's Devil God transformation. These 3 soul skills were typically used together, and were the signature moves of the White Tiger lineage. Dai Huabin transformed into an exceptionally muscular and burly giant more than 2.5 meters tall. His entire body was covered in white fur, which radiated eye-catching color, as his tiger claws protruded like razor-sharp blades. Dai Huabin raised his speed and strength to the highest possible level as he arrived beside Zhulu in a flash. He swung his tiger claws powerfully at the giant centipede. The centipede opened its mouth, and a dense and dark green venomous fog erupted from its jaws. This fog sprayed onto Dai Huabin's white tiger shield, and sizzling sounds could be heard. Dai Huabin could feel his soul power being consumed at an exponentially faster rate than before. However, his claws struck the centipede's body as well. This time, the centipede didn't have an easy time dealing with Dai Huabin's attack. Dai Huabin felt as if he had slashed into a thick and sturdy metal rod. The centipede was remarkably elastic, and it bolted swiftly into the air, but Dai Huabin's sharp claws left several deep gashes behind on its tough body. Dai Huabin's 4th soul ring lit up at this moment, and uncountable light rays instantly rained down on the centipede. In terms of connecting soul skills, Dai Huabin lived up to his reputation as one of Shrek Academy's elites. How could anybody who could enter Shrek Academy's inner courtyard be a subpar fighter? Dai Huabin looked back at Zhulu as he attacked the centipede and asked, "How are you feeling, Lulu?" Zhulu was clearly very relieved when she saw him. Her delicate frame swayed a little as she sat down on the ground. "I think I've been poisoned. Be careful. I'll kill it first, before I help you treat your wounds." Dai Huabin roared angrily once more. Zhulu being injured gave him a massive heartache, and this was especially true after he had determined his true feelings for Zhulu earlier today. Dai Huabin unleashed his full strength, and his body sprang into the air. He arrived before the giant centipede in almost the same instant as he stretched out his tiger claws and launched lightning-fast attacks upon it. The centipede was quite formidable. Its body was 3 meters long, and was its strongest weapon. Every single leg was like a sharp blade. Dai Huabin couldn't be bothered with any tricks and techniques, because he wanted to save Zhulu as quickly as possible. He relied on the effects of his White Tiger's 3 amplification soul skills stacking to fight force with force. Shrill clashing sounds rang out again and again as more and more wounds appeared on the enormous centipede's body. Dai Huabin's white fur and his white tiger's shield became his most effective defensive abilities, and he continued fighting force with force just like that. Even though he was expending soul power at an alarming rate, he didn't seem like he was injured at all. Dai Huabin smashed the giant centipede once more, sending it flying. The enormous centipede was already wounded all over, and it seemed to realize that it had lost. It arched and bounced back to its feet before escaping rapidly into the distance. Dai Huabin couldn't be bothered with chasing it. He immediately returned to Zhulu's side. Zhulu was almost unconscious at this point. Dai Huabin only realized how serious her injuries were when he knelt down beside her. The giant centipede's venom was extremely intense. Black streaks webbed all over her body, and this was especially true for her facial wound and the gash down her right arm. Her skin was starting to smell of rot, and even her flesh and the muscles beneath her skin had become black. Zhulu's soul power could only prevent the toxins from reaching her brain and heart. But even so, it didn't seem like she could hold those toxins off any longer. What should I do? Dai Huabin's fighting strength was formidable enough, but he wasn't any good at first aid or treating wounds. Dai Huabin almost ground his teeth down as he watched Zhulu in the state she was in. Hold on, Lulu. Dai Huabin growled as he suddenly raised his right hand and sliced off the flesh and skin around the wound on Zhulu's right arm. His other hand swiftly transformed back into a human arm, and he helped her seal her blood vessels to prevent her from losing too much blood. However, Dai Huabin drew a cold breath once more after slicing off her poisoned flesh. The bones underneath Zhulu's flesh had already become black. It was clear that she was heavily poisoned. What should I do? I can't hesitate any longer. Dai Huabin took a deep breath, and his tiger eyes welled up with tears as he swiped out vigorously with his right hand. Sharp tiger claws that resembled sharp blades instantly cut downward. Shusanshi's eyes were a little lost as he appeared along a street. The street was bustling with activity, and there were many people around him. Eh? Why does this place look so familiar? He was shocked to realize that he seemed to have returned to the real world, and felt an indescribable familiarity towards everything around him. Shusansha looked up at the sky. The sun was sliding down towards the west. It was evening. Second young master. Why are you still here? We've already made the reservation for you. Follow me, quickly. It's your birthday celebration today. A little fellow that seemed a little wretched raced over, and arrived before Shusansha, as he panted vigorously. What are you doing here, Chen Wen? Shusansha felt a surge of warmth in his heart when he saw the person who was speaking to him. The reason was because this fellow who seemed exceptionally wretched was Shusanshi's good friend that he had grown up with and played with as kid. This fellow was also his personal servant, and the two of them had been together since they were children. They were as close to one another as actual brothers. However, Chen Wen's talent wasn't good, and he didn't have any soul power after his martial soul had awakened. Shusansha, meanwhile, became stronger and stronger, and after he entered Shrek Academy, they no longer kept in touch like they had before. Shusansha was elated when he saw Chen Wen here. What's wrong with you, second young master? Where am I supposed to be if I'm not supposed to be here? Quickly, follow me, or we'll be late. You have no idea, but I found an exquisite one for you today. You will definitely be pleased. Haven't you been saying for years that you wished to experience that wonderful sensation as soon as possible? Today is your 15th birthday, and the housemaster has personally arranged everything for you. Why aren't you eager and in a hurry? Shusansha could feel that something was wrong with his own voice when he spoke, and he suddenly snapped his head down and stared at his own body when he heard Chen Wen's words. He realized to his shock that his body had become smaller and shorter, and even his clothes were different from what he was wearing in the Yin-Yang Love Querying Valley. My 15th birthday, my 15th birthday. Can it be? Can it be that I? Shusansha had an epiphany hit his brain like a thunderbolt at that moment. His mentality was typically stable and steady on normal days, but he couldn't help but feel a numbing and stinging feeling on his scalp, as if he had touched an electric current, and he was having trouble controlling himself. Shusansha felt as if Bei had unleashed his vigorous thunderbolt on him. This is my 15th birthday. Today is actually my 15th birthday. I'm actually back, and I look like I did all those years ago. How is that possible? How is any of this actually possible? Chen Wen hurriedly ran over and tried to pull Shusansha along as he saw the sluggish look in his eyes. Shusansha was entirely immersed in his own memories at this moment, and his eyes were still lackadaisical as he followed Chen Wen's lead. Shusanshi's mind was a mess. Of course, Shusansha remembered his 15th birthday. His 15th birthday was the day that he had first met her. This place was his hometown, and both of them came from the same city. Shusansha came from the Heaven Do Empire, and his family belonged to one of the Heavenly Do Empire's reclusive sects, the mysterious underworld sect. Everyone in his family had centered their hopes on Shusansha to succeed as housemaster in his generation, and his family had nurtured him as best they could since he was a child. Shusansha had entered Shrek Academy at the age of 12, and he became an overnight celebrity along with Bei Bei when they amazed the world with their feats, and became one of their class's most outstanding students. He had already been at Shrek Academy for 3 years when his 15th birthday came to pass. Chen Wen tugged and pulled as he swiftly led Shusansha somewhere. This place's atmosphere seemed a little dubious. The lanterns that were hanging outside were pink, and there were pavilions and carclofts inside, along with artificial rocks and landscapes. This place seemed exceptionally elegant and exquisite. This place, it really is this place. I'm actually back. Does this mean that the Yin-Yang Love Querying Valley is giving me a chance to undo what I did? Shusanshi's eyes suddenly became sharp and focused, and he suddenly felt his thoughts becoming clear and rational in that moment. He raised his head and looked up at the sky. The moon had risen high into the sky, but it seemed like it was formed from a golden sun and a silver moon in Shusanshi's eyes. If you're really giving me a chance to undo what I did, I am absolutely willing, even if my life is shortened by 10 years. It was today's stupidity, all those years ago, that distanced my true love from me, and she is still haunted up until this day. She isn't the only one. I feel the same way. We're here, second young master, it's right inside. Chen Wen's smile became a little wider and more wavy as he pointed at a small room in a corner in front of them, not far from where they were standing. This is the place. Shusanshi's throat and mouth went dry at this moment. Everything was just as he remembered. He was back, he was actually back. Chen Wen suddenly turned serious and said, "Second young master, every direct male disciple of our mysterious underworld sect has to undergo a special awakening ritual of his martial soul when he's 15 years old. This awakening is extremely important to you. Once it's completed, your martial soul might completely evolve. If it evolves to the Xuanwu shield, you'll become the heir to the sect leader." The martial soul that was passed down in the mysterious underworld sect was the shield of the Xuanwu turtle. There was a secret that only those within the sect knew, the evolution of the shield of the Xuanwu turtle. They only developed this ritual after many attempts by the ancestors of the sect. Chen Wen knew this secret not only because he was Shusanshi's personal servant, but also because 5 generations of his family had served under the mysterious underworld sect. They were true, core disciples. Even though they couldn't undergo the awakening of their martial souls, they still held a very high status in the sect. This ritual was very crucial in evolving the shield of the Xuanwu turtle to the Xuanwu shield. This ritual was carried out when he was 15 and still a virgin. Regarding this, the mysterious underworld sect had always kept it a secret. After all, it wasn't a very glorious thing. The mysterious underworld sect was reclusive. To carry on the survival of the sect, they had no choice but to do this. When this time came, they would always choose a girl from a good family and offer her a huge sum of money if she was willing to have sexual intercourse with the chosen male disciple. If the girl was willing to join the mysterious underworld sect, she could at least become his concubine, and possibly his wife if their relationship developed well. If she wasn't willing, she could leave with that sum of money. This had long become a rule of the mysterious underworld sect. As the most likely candidate to experience an awakening of his martial soul, Shusansha was selected. A virgin was also picked out for him after a strict selection process by the mysterious underworld sect. Not only did the girl have to be a virgin, but she had to be a soul master that wasn't older than Shusansha, too. In addition, she had to be intelligent and beautiful. Right now, everything had been prepared. The only thing left was for Shusansha to enter the room and start the ritual. Shusanshi's gaze was a little lost. Of course he recalled that night, or rather, this night. He was only 15 years old then, but he was already very curious about the opposite gender, due to how his family attached such importance to this ritual and his natural development. He was very excited as he entered the room, but it had turned into a huge mistake. At this point, he couldn't remain calm as everything played out again. Okay, young master, you can enter now. Do your best. Chen Wen's serious expression turned playful again. There was even a look of envy and perversion on his face. Young master, I've taken a look for you. This lady is extremely beautiful. Master even mentioned that you can wed her if you like. Shu Sanxia took in a deep breath. As he looked at the door, he started to have mixed feelings. Nan Nan, I'm coming, he silently said to himself before walking over with big steps. Is the yin-yang love querying valley letting me try again, because it wants to reawaken my martial soul again? No, it's testing my sincerity. It's testing what's really important in my heart. What had happened then kept on playing in Shu Sanxi's mind. When he had walked into the room, he had been eager to head to the bed. All he saw was a ravishing young lady, who had shut her eyes under the dim lights. It was his first time seeing her. However, he didn't know that she was also. Due to several reasons, he had had no choice but to do this. He pressed down on Jiang Nan Nan, but her rigid body was trembling. Shu Sanxia tried a few times, but he didn't succeed. Finally, he decided to try the position that his uncles once joked about. He flipped her over and pressed down from behind. However, he went into the wrong hole, only to find that he was unable to stop, as the evolution process had begun. Shu Sanxia was extremely gifted. The shield of the Xuanwu turtle eventually still evolved, but the evolution wasn't complete. It was only a half-completed Xuanwu shield. This incident was the reason why Jiang Nan Nan ostracized him so much. Shu Sanxia also realized that he had made a big mistake, but he couldn't help what had already happened. She left after the incident. When Shu Sanxia saw her again, she was already in Shrek Academy. Right now, Shu Sanxia had mixed feelings as this scene replayed itself in his mind. When he saw Jiang Nan Nan, he only had a burning passion towards her. However, Jiang Nan Nan treated him as if he were a brutal beast. Since then, he had gone through a lot before he finally got together with Jiang Nan Nan. With the help of the sea god's fated blind date, he managed to get Jiang Nan Nan to accept him. However, he knew that she still hadn't forgotten what had happened, even though she accepted him now. It had also been affecting their relationship. It was only recently that she was willing to hold his hand, hug him, and kiss him. Jiang Nan Nan had once told Shu Sanxia that she was still emotionally hurt from that incident and needed more time. Right now, Shu Sanxia had to face this girl whose eyes were shut, and who was waiting for him quietly. Shu Sanxia pursed his lips tightly and looked into the sky. Right now, his emotions were surging, and were about to flow out. Thank you, love querying valley. You let me live this out once again. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. I'm willing to start afresh from here. Thank you. As he spoke, he bowed to the bright moon in the sky. After that, he pushed the door open and walked in. Chen Wen was a little confused at how Shu Sanxia was acting, but still continued to guard the door for him. He stood outside the door and guarded the room. As he entered the room, the lights were as dim as before. Shu Sanxia could still clearly recall that he was excited and nervous when he rushed to the bed. Right now, he was taking slow steps. His body was even trembling. As he was agitated, he clenched his fists tightly. He finally walked in front of the bed. He saw Jiang Nan Nan waiting silently for destiny, or rather misfortune, to arrive. He lifted his head and forcefully held back his tears. He gently unveiled her and sat beside her on the bed. Jiang Nan Nan shuddered when she felt someone coming, and she became very tense. Yes. She was still very young then, around 14 years old. I'm really a beast. Shu Sanxia lifted his hand and slapped himself on the face. Pack. Jiang Nan Nan seemed to be frightened by the sudden noise, and subconsciously opened her eyes. She was very nervous, and looked at Shu Sanxia with a frightened look on her face. Don't be scared. Shu Sanxia gently said. After that, he stood up from the bed and tried to comfort her. Jiang Nan Nan gently bit her lower lip. She didn't move as she looked at him. Shu Sanxia took in a deep breath. I'm sorry for frightening you. Believe me, I won't let you come to harm. Not now. Not in the future. After hearing his words, Jiang Nan Nan seemed a little lost. She didn't know what to say as she looked at him. Shu Sanxia squatted down beside her so that he could get a closer look at her face. He gently said, My name is Shu Sanxia. I know that they gave you money to consummate this ritual with me, but I won't do it. I don't want to hurt you. Jiang Nan Nan was a little stunned. However, her fear and anxiety suddenly disappeared. It was just that Shu Sanxia was still overwhelmed with emotions right now, and didn't discover it. You're Jiang Nan Nan, am I right? Shu Sanxia asked softly. Jiang Nan Nan nodded. She was under a blanket as Shu Sanxia pointed at her and said, I'll go to one side. You can put your clothes back on. I think you'll feel safer that way. We can chat afterwards. To put them at ease, I can't leave this room tonight. Jiang Nan Nan was evidently stunned. But your martial soul has to be cultivated. Shu Sanxia interrupted her. I can't be a beast even if that's the case. I told you that I won't hurt you. Not now. Not in the future. How can the awakening of my martial soul compare to you? So what if it's the Xuanwu shield? So what if I become the sect master? They are nothing compared to you. I'm willing to give up everything for you. Even if I can't enter the inner courtyard of Shrek Academy in the future, and become a member of Shrek's 7 monsters, I'm still willing. As he spoke, Shu Sanxia stood up and turned around. He walked into a corner and faced the wall. He smiled. The trauma in his heart had finally been removed. After so many years, the trauma, pain and guilt in his heart had finally vanished. Yes. I can give up everything for you, Nan Nan. I love you. If we can start afresh, I'm willing to use everything I've got to make this right. I'll love you with all my heart, so that you'll no longer be traumatized. Tears started to stream down his face as he smiled. I'm done changing. You can come over. Jiang Nannan's voice sounded behind him. Silence. Nothing but silence all around. The moon was shining very brightly on this night. However, Jiang Nan was feeling very mixed feelings. Right now, she was standing outside a village as she carried something in her arms. Everything around her felt very familiar and clear in her memory. Her heart seemed to be trembling as she felt the surrounding aura. She gently bit her lip as her purple hair flowed behind her head. She looked up at the sun and moon and silently asked, why am I back here? Why? Why am I back in this place, where I was once extremely frightened? Is this to remind me of my most painful memory? Is this to make me experience that pain once again? No, I don't want to. I don't want to. Jiang Nan shook her head forcefully, and her tears flowed down uncontrollably. She would never, ever forget this place. That night, that guy, whose body suddenly started glowing black, brought me so much pain and humiliation. I've been traumatized ever since that experience, even though that guy. Jiang Nan was in low spirits as she walked forward. She still clearly remembered that she had sent the sum of money back, after receiving it, and immediately left for Shrek Academy. That was because she was too ashamed to see her mother anymore. A few years had passed since then, but she had only communicated with her mother through letters. She also sent some money back to her, but she had never had the courage to return to see her. She was afraid of reliving the pain if she saw her mother. I want to see my mom again and personally pass her money. Although she always claims to be well every time she writes me a letter, is she really well? I'm so foolish. No matter what I've done, Mommy will always love me. She'll forgive me. Mommy, I really miss you. Her tears flowed even more uncontrollably. Her yearning to see her mother seemed to lessen the trauma that she was experiencing. She ran quickly. Even though her abilities had only recovered to the standard of a 3-ringed soul master, she was still much faster than other soul masters of the same level, as her martial soul was a softbone rabbit. Finally, she saw the place. It was a reputable clinic in the city, which offered the best treatment and rehabilitative services. The reason why she had agreed to that guy's family's request was because her mother. She was getting closer and closer to the clinic. Just like that day, the owner of the clinic was standing at the door. The owner passed her the sum of money and a Xuanwu divine pill that only the Xianming sect had to treat her mother. After she saw her mother consume the Xuanwu divine pill from outside the window, she quickly turned and ran away. She was tormented then, and that torment had lasted even until now. Mommy, how are you? She missed her mother incredibly. However, the clinic turned illusory just as Jiang Nan was about to reach the front door. Everything around it turned illusory. No. No, why did you bring me into this illusion, but not let me see my mother? Please, let me see my mother. Jiang Nan shouted and wailed. After that, she realized that everything in front of her had turned clear again. However, she was no longer able to control her body. The clinic in front of her seemed to turn transparent. Everything distorted, and a thought suddenly appeared in her mind. 1 day later. 1 day later. What does that mean? Jiang Nan started to become agitated even before she recovered from her confusion. This was because she finally saw her mother, who was lying on a bed, and appeared very pale. Right now, her mother's body rippled with a black glow. It was the effect of consuming the Xuanwu divine pill. "Mommy, mommy!" Jiang Nan shouted. However, her voice couldn't be heard. At this moment, she saw another person. Another person had walked into her mother's ward. Why is he here? Jiang Nan was stunned. The person who had walked into the ward was Shusansha. Chen Wen was also following close behind him. Shusansha seemed very puerile, but Jiang Nan knew that his cultivation was already close to 4 rings. He was stronger than her. Suddenly, Shusansha and Chen Wen started conversing with each other. Is she the mother of that girl? Why is she not here? Chen Wen scratched his head and replied, I don't know either. I only heard that her mother was staying here. She sold her body to us because her mother was sick. Her mother has a congenital heart disease and needed our Xuanwu divine pill to improve her condition. At the same time, she needs to rest for a long time before she can recover. I think she had no choice, thus she had to. Shusansha clenched his fists tightly and furiously said, Why didn't you mention this earlier? She was doing it to save her mother, but as he spoke, he punched the wall next to him. We have to find her no matter what. I need to make amends for my mistake. I'll marry her once I find her. I'm really a jerk. Chen Wen, can you help me lift her up? Chen Wen was stunned. Second young master, what do you want to do? Shusansha said, while the medicinal power of a Xuanwu divine pill is mild, it digests very slowly. Furthermore, the longer the time needed for digestion, the weaker the effect of the pill. I can use my soul power to speed it up, so she'll be able to absorb the medicinal power of the pill much more easily. After all, my soul power is complementary to a Xuanwu divine pill. Chen Wen hurriedly said, You can't do this, young master. You've just experienced the second awakening of your martial soul. You can't do this. You'll hurt your vitality. Shusansha was still furious. I have to do it no matter what. I hurt her so badly. What's a little vitality? Since I can't find her now, I'll help take care of her mother first. Chen Wen unwillingly lifted Jiang Nan's mother up under Shusanshi's demands. Jiang Nan was in a daze as she watched all of this. She muttered to herself, Sansha. Everything in front of her seemed to suddenly speed up. Jiang Nan saw Shusansha sitting behind her mother and activating his soul power. Eventually, he fainted, but her mother woke up. She also saw how Shusansha told the clinic personnel to take good care of her mother before giving them a large sum of money. Time passed quickly. The thought that had appeared in her mind earlier surfaced again. 1 week later, Chen Wen came to the clinic with a lot of food and daily necessities. He was visiting her mother on Shusanshi's behalf. 2 weeks later, Chen Wen came to visit again. 3 weeks later. Every week, Chen Wen would come to visit her mother on Shusanshi's behalf. However, he asked her mother not to include any of his visits in her letters to Jiang Nan. Half a year later, Shusansha personally paid Jiang Nan's mother a visit. He's actually here to visit mommy. But I never once returned. Tears streamed down Jiang Nan's face once again. As she saw how her mother and Shusansha had a pleasant conversation, how Shusansha helped to massage her mother's shoulders and heal her body with his soul power, Jiang Nan broke down in tears. This idiot. He never once told me anything. He has been helping take care of my mother all these years. Idiot, fool, jerk. Why didn't you tell me? Her mother's figure slowly faded away. However, her flushed, red cheeks, her benevolent smile and the affable look in Shusanshi's eyes were deeply imprinted on Jiang Nan's mind. All this are real. It must be real. Sansha. Everything in front of her suddenly changed. Her surroundings dimmed, and Jiang Nan was stunned to realize she was lying down on a bed. After this, she heard a familiar voice. I'm sorry for making you so frightened. Trust me, I don't want you to come to any harm. Not now. Not in the future. My name is Shusansha. I know that they gave you some money to consummate this ritual with me, but I won't do it. I don't want to hurt you. You're Jiang Nan Nan, am I right? Shusansha asked softly. Jiang Nan Nan nodded. I'll go to one side. You can put your clothes back on. I think you'll feel safer this way. We can chat afterwards. To put them at ease, I can't leave this room tonight. Jiang Nan Nan was stunned. But your martial soul has to be cultivated. I can't be a beast even if that's the case. I told you that I won't hurt you. Not now. Not in the future. How can the awakening of my martial soul compare to you? So what if it's the Xuanwu shield? So what if I become the sect master? They are nothing compared to you. I'm willing to give up everything for you. Even if I can't enter the inner courtyard of Shrek Academy in the future, and become a member of Shrek's 7 monsters, I'm still willing. As she looked at his resolute back and his determined words, Jiang Nan Nan could no longer keep her tears from flowing. I'm done changing. You can come over now. Shusansha turned around and walked to the bedside, but he panicked when he saw Jiang Nan Nan tearing up. Nan Nan, don't cry. Don't worry, I won't do anything to you no matter what. I won't harm you. I guarantee you that I won't touch you. I don't care, Jiang Nan Nan sobbed. What? Shusansha was in a daze as he watched Jiang Nan Nan sit up suddenly on the bed. She wasn't wearing any clothes, and her movement revealed her delicate, white shoulders. What did you say? Jiang Nan Nan suddenly leapt towards him and hugged his neck. Her voice was almost inaudible because of her crying. I said I don't care. Fool, I said I don't care. I love you, Sansha. Part 2 end here.